Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and I've gotta say, Metroid Dread is awesome. The iconic 2D Metroid style exploration is back, the different areas that you explore are unique and interesting, and the controls are as smooth as butter. Not to mention, the encounters with the enemies are so thrilling that at times my heart was popping out of my chest. But I think the thing that stood out to me the most is how interesting and intense these boss fights are. To be honest, I don't think any other Metroid game stacks up in terms of bosses in the entire series, 2D or 3D. I also mean that in terms of difficulty, these are definitely some tough boss fights. So with that being said, we're gonna have to rank these boss fights from worst to best, in my opinion at least. Also, I'm only counting bosses that appear on the map as such, so encounters like with the central units and the enemies won't be included on the list, and for the sake of not being redundant, I'm going to group together bosses that are extremely similar into one spot in the rankings. One last thing, Metroid Dread has only been out a couple weeks, and we'll be talking about every boss in this game, so obviously spoilers in regards to all that stuff. But anyways, let's go! Coming in at number 11, we have the Chozo Soldier, which is a Chozo with a spear that has been infected with the X-Parasite. Now, my first playthrough of Metroid Dread, I found this boss to be pretty fun, but ultimately I think the Chozo Soldier has the most predictable and limited moveset of almost any boss in the game, and that's why I put this encounter at the bottom spot. They have a ground attack where they try to swipe you with their spear that's pretty easy to jump over, and then an attack where the Chozo Soldier will jump off the wall and do a spear stab on the ground that can also be pretty easily avoided by sliding or flash shifting. There's a second phase where the Chozo Soldier goes all X-Parasite, but all it really adds to the table in terms of moveset is a wave of black gunk after the spear stab to the ground. But at number 10, we have a very similar but different enough foe to warrant their own spot on the list, the Elite Chozo Soldier. It's the same Chozo Soldier as before, only they have a couple extra moves. They also have a shield that can be destroyed by bombarding it with missiles or with your grapple beam that will get you a bunch of ammo and health resources. They can also do a shield rush, but it's about as easy to avoid as the spear swipe attack. The biggest addition in terms of moveset though is that when you get to the X-Parasite phase of this battle, when the Elite Chozo Soldier jumps on the wall, they'll shoot a beam of gunk at you that I can only assume is a result of the Elite Chozo Soldier eating leftover Taco Bell right before our battle. Coming in at the number 9 spot, we have SQ, which is an electrical bug that has been infected with the X-Parasite. And this boss really only has like 3 moves. One where it shoots a ball of energy at you that'll send out a shockwave if it hits the floor, one where there's a scatter shot of projectiles, and one where SQ will try to ram itself into you. I personally think this is the boss fight where I found flash shifting to be the most valuable, as it's such a fast-paced, frantic battle with attacks that are actually pretty hard to avoid otherwise. You also get a fun throwback to Metroid Fusion with fighting the Core X after defeating SQ. But ultimately, I found this boss fight to be pretty meh due to the few moves the boss has, as well as the fast yet frantic pace being less interesting than you would expect. At number 8, we have Golzuna, which is the boss fight I would have put at the bottom of this list if you asked me after my first playthrough. But after fighting Golzuna a couple more times, my appreciation of this battle has gone up a little. I guess initially it's hard to figure out the best way to get on the other side of the boss since that's where you're supposed to attack, and I found it really annoying at first finding a consistent way to accomplish that without getting hit and taking an immense amount of damage. You can slide under Golzuna just as it's about to attack, but I found a lot more consistency personally timing my spin jumps over Golzuna or with flash shifts. Once you get to the other side, you just need to go all out with storm missiles and to avoid the various cross-bomb attacks from the creature. Golzuna is arguably the most annoying boss, but I guess the satisfaction of figuring out a strategy in later playthroughs brought it up to number 8 for me personally. For number 7, we have the robot Chozo Soldier, who did the ultimate uncool thing and took out her best friend on ZDR, Quiet Robe. Now the robot Chozo Soldiers are a lot faster and intense than their non-robot brethren, and have many different attacks such as beam attacks that will shoot 3 shots at you as well as a charged beam attack. They also have a beam blade attack where they will lunge at you that can be avoided with a flash shift or a well-timed jump. But the reason I find this boss fight so fun is they have to keep moving around the terrain while dodging all these attacks. It's fast-paced in the way I personally find fun, not in the way that the SQ fight was just frantically flash shifting all over the place. But hey, 2 is better than 1, right? So number 6 on the list is the twin Robot Chozo Soldier fight. It's the same as your typical Robot Chozo Soldier fight, only there are 2 of them now. It's definitely a more interesting fight for that reason, as well as having an expanded terrain this time around, but that's about it. Here we are, the top 5, and I'd say this is definitely where things really get going. So at number 5, we have Corpus, the first true boss fight we encounter in Metroid Dread. Corpus is a creature that has a camouflage ability and a scorpion-like tail, as well as a backside that looks like it's straight from Resident Evil 2. And this is a heck of a first boss fight. Dodging swipes from Corpus's tail, as well as toxic gas attacks in this perfectly paced battle, is a great tone setter for the bosses to come in this game. The camouflage ability does come into play in this boss battle, but ultimately it seemed more cosmetic than anything else, as you can still tell where Corpus is for the most part. And we also get the introduction to the melee events you get from timing a parry well, where Samus just gets in Corpus's face and you can just blast a bunch of missiles right into the creature. This is a badass start to Metroid Dread, and it's well deserving of being in the top 5 bosses. At number 4, we have Drogika. I never would have thought I'd like an underwater boss fight where you don't have the gravity suit this much, but here we are. Drogika is certainly not the hardest boss in the game, and is almost more of a puzzle boss in a way, since after you damage the upper tentacle enough, the goal is to hit the 2 buttons on both sides of the room in a limited amount of time to drain the water and then attack Drogika's eye. You have to dodge various other attacks while attacking the upper tentacle though, from balls of energy falling to the floor to other tentacles swiping at you. And with the slower movement from being underwater, you need to rethink the timing of your jumps. And I think that's part of what makes it interesting to me. Drogika is certainly not a headliner by any means, but it's a boss that I had a lot more fun with than I would have expected. For number 3, we have a classic foe appearing with Crait, and wow, do they do a good job of making Crait intimidating by size and by looks. In the first phase of this fight, Crait will attack you by tossing his claws at you, as well as upchucking a bunch of globals and fire from his mouth. After that, Crait gets an arm free and knocks down the platform, and now you have to dodge attacks from pink goo, more globals, as well as spikes that come out of Crait's stomach hole, which unfortunately makes me think of a jelly donut for some reason. Anyways, after you do enough damage, you can ride the magnetic strip up and attack Crait's mouth again, and keep doing that until you get an awesome cinematic sequence of Samus finishing off the mammoth creature once again. Or, after you finish the first phase, if you're able to obtain the Morph Ball bombs early, you could skip over the second phase entirely and instantly defeat Crait, which is just such a cool feature they put in this game, and is such a great way to reward players that were able to figure that out. Coming in at the runner-up position at number 2, we have experiment number Z57, which looks like what would happen if the Mind Flayer from Stranger Things got infected with the X-Parasite. The monstrosity has many different attacks, such as firing a plasma beam at you where you have to wait for a pause in the attack to get to the other side to avoid it, an attack where it will swipe its arms at you, as well as a plasma beam where it will shoot at the other side of the room, where afterwards, if you can pull off a successful parry, you get quite arguably the most badass melee event in the entire game, with Samus getting on top of the creature and bombarding it with attacks as it scurries around the backdrop of the stage. There's also an attack where it will fire the plasma beam at the fans in the room, and that will blow you into the wall while also firing lines of plasma projectiles at you, requiring precise jumps from your space jump ability to avoid it. And as expected from Metroid Dread, Samus is once again a complete and utter badass when finishing off this boss in the ending cutscene. When I first played this boss, I thought there's no topping this, right? Well, wrong, because at the top spot we have Ravenbeat, the final boss of Metroid Dread. And wow, is this an intense action-filled boss fight. You start the first phase with Ravenbeat pulling off all these relentless attacks, with him swiping at you dealing immense damage, a beam attack that covers nearly the entire room, as well as sending out a giant ball of energy that you have to power bomb to destroy without it continually getting in your way, dealing with all of Ravenbeat's other attacks. Eventually, Ravenbeat will taunt Samus, and then successfully parrying his attack will trigger a melee sequence where you can do some serious damage. Once you've hit Ravenbeat enough this way, you'll enter the second phase of the battle where he brings out his wings and gives off some serious God of War Valkyrie vibes. This is personally my favorite phase. Between dodging the stream of small bursts from his arm cannon by space jumping around him, to the giant laser he shoots at you, to the dash slam into the wall, this phase just has so many interesting attacks and is constant fun. The third phase is similar to the first, only now Ravenbeat can use Shine Spark-like attacks, as well as throw a sun-like burst of energy at you that you'll need to destroy with power bombs. He can also use his arm cannon and shoot that giant laser at you again. After that, we get one more phase of action as Ravenbeat gets infected with an X-Parasite and becomes a Crait-like creature that Samus eradicates with her Hyper Beam in an epic conclusion to an amazing game. Alright, well those were just my rankings, so comment down below and let me know how you'd rank these bosses. Remember to give this video a like, because one like equals one jelly donut that won't be made from Crait's stomach. And be sure to subscribe and click that bell if you want to see more videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.